Well, I guess it's time to talk about Birds of Prey. I have been looking forward to slash dreading talking about this movie because in recent times there's been a lot of news coming out about Birds of Prey. The critics loved it, and I was very happy that critically speaking it was pretty successful. However, a lot of the reviewers that I follow on Twitter and on YouTube, some of them were kind of lukewarm to it. Sometimes even saying that it was just horrible. Birds of Prey is not doing very well at the box office right now, and it's basically become a mudslinging contest over on film Twitter. Everyone's saying, oh, it's because of the dude bros that the movie's not doing well. And then the other side is saying, oh, it's because the movie's too feminist. It's all against, girls rule and boys drool and all that dumb stuff. But I've always seen this channel as my opinion. I don't want to echo film Twitter's opinion. I want to convey my opinions. Whatever I say on this channel is just from my perspective. So with that said, I can safely sit here and say that I legitimately enjoyed Birds of Prey. This video took me so long to do because when I walked out of the movie on Thursday, I was like, that was really, really good. But then I was like, maybe I should give it a second to kind of mull it over in my head. Now that I've taken the weekend to think about it and talk about it to myself and write down some notes, I can safely say that Birds of Prey is legitimately very good. I'm sure there will be some of you who want me to talk about the bad stuff first, so let's rip the band-aid off and talk about the bad stuff first. Starting with the music choices. Now, I should caveat this by saying that the music in this movie is not as bad as its spiritual successor, Suicide Squad, or predecessor in this case. Suicide Squad's soundtrack was basically all of the cliche needle drops, including Bohemian Rhapsody, and Fortunate Son, like everything short of like Whiter Shade of Pale and like Gimme Shelter. For example, there is a scene where Black Canary is singing in Black Mask's club. And the song that she is singing is It's a Man's World by James Brown. Good song, but the entire time I was thinking, symbolism, symbolism, symbolism. The music is better in this movie because it serves a purpose. However, some of the songs were kind of weird or weirdly chosen because they served that purpose. It's complicated. And then there were just straight up weird moments. Like, there is an entire sequence in this movie where Harley Quinn is dressed up as Marilyn Monroe and she sings Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, while flanked by male dancers in tuxedos and wearing BDSM-style ball gags, but without the balls. And then at the end, Ewan McGregor comes in and slaps Harley Quinn in the face, and the dream sequence is over. This dream sequence is never mentioned again after this. Now, I'm sure you're thinking that I didn't like this scene because it was demeaning to men. No, that's not the case at all. What I didn't like about it was that it just did not fit into the context of the movie. It's like that scene in Seinfeld where Seinfeld is talking to a Catholic priest and he's complaining to him that his doctor, Dr. Watley, converted to Judaism just for the jokes. And the Catholic priest is like, and this offends you as a Jew? And Seinfeld's like, no, it offends me as a comedian. This scene not necessarily offends me, but just sticks in my craw because it doesn't offend me as a man, it offends me as a cinephile, in that the scene makes absolutely no sense. That's where it begins and ends. And then the last of the bad stuff was everything involving Chris Messina, who played Victor Zsasz. Now, I like Chris Messina. He's a great bit actor. He plays small parts in movies like Argo and Julie and Julia. But in this movie, he is painfully over the top. Like, the director was like, okay, you are just a misogynist piece of crap. Go to town. And he absolutely did. Again, I'm sure Messina was serving some kind of a purpose, but in this movie, he actually meows while giving one of the birds of prey a threat. He meows like a cat, It's like, what? Again, doesn't offend me as a man, offends me as a movie fan. That's all the stuff I didn't like. What I did like was quite a bit. Starting with Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn. She was born to play Harley Quinn. Like, she's excellent. There were some moments where I was like, okay, she's doing the Deadpool thing. But at the same time, she brought enough of her own charm to it and her own charisma that I was like, okay, this is cool. Harley kicks a lot of ass in this movie, and I think that that's the best way I can parlay into the action, because the action in this movie is surprisingly really good. Like, one of my biggest complaints of this movie's predecessor, Suicide Squad, was that you couldn't see anything. It was all just gray, like with some neon thrown in there to be like, hey, we've got colors too. But in this movie, you can see everything. All the action is shot beautifully, everything is in frame, and wow, there are some pretty violent hits in this. There's a scene near the beginning where Harley crushes this dude's leg. I'm like, oh, you are not walking that off. And then let's talk about Ewan McGregor. This guy is awesome. Like, he's having way too much fun in this movie. I'm a fan of Ewan McGregor. I love him in the Star Wars prequels. I love him in movies like The Impossible. But in here, he's just having the time of his life. He doesn't get the mask until the end of the movie, and I was like, does he really need it at this point? It's like window dressing. Like, that doesn't really need to be added to this, the Ewan McGregor show. And then one final thing before we hit the road. One of the main complaints I've been seeing online is the fact that this is more of a Harley Quinn movie rather than a Birds of Prey movie, in that it's Harley and then the rest of the girls are there tagging along. To a certain extent, I kind of understand, but at the same time, it's not like the rest of the birds were just there doing nothing. Everyone was doing something. It's just a matter of, okay, maybe this was just mismarketing. Regardless, I mean, I enjoyed all the other ladies, especially Mary Elizabeth Winstead, who I am a massive fan of. I will end this review by saying this. This version of Birds of Prey is about as good a version of Birds of Prey as we're probably ever going to get. And this version of Harley Quinn is about as good a Harley Quinn as we are ever going to get. That being said, I'm going to give the movie a great rating. Is this a perfect movie? No, not even close. But in my opinion, the good far outweighs the bad. If you do not like this movie, I can understand to a certain extent, but at the same time, if you argue that, oh, feminism ruined the movie, that's just dumb. You are looking at just the content rather than the technical side of things. Technically, this was a very well-made movie. Does it go a little thick in its messaging? At times, but if you're going into it for a good time, you're going to come out of it having a really good time. It all just depends on your perspective. But that is all for me, guys. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. I have reviewed the rest of the DCEU movies, all the way from Man of Steel up to Birds of Prey. I will link that in the eye in the right-hand corner over here, if you would like to check that out. Also, I'll be uploading more Twilight Zone vlogs this week. Finally getting on top of that, now that the DCEU stuff is now over. My name is Ryan Cam, and see you in the next one.